Hello, and welcome to Retroscoping, a podcast tracing the evolution of feature animation. We are journeying through the films of the studio that started it all, Walt Disney Studios. And this week, we are delving into 1950's Cinderella, the 12th film. But first, a bit about us. Why are we qualified to do this, Nathan?
Well, Alexa, earlier this week, we dressed up as Anna and Kristoff and serenaded a 3-year-old's birthday party with songs from Frozen. So I feel like we have enough Disney cred to get away with it.
Let it be known that we are still in quarantine during COVID-19. And so we zoomed into a wonderful 3-year-old's birthday party. And it was very fun and silly. And all of the poor parents who had to listen to us sing Let It Go twice.
Zoom calls are frequently frozen, but this is the only time people wanted it to be frozen.
Nice. Well, I'm your host, Alexa.
And I'm the other host, Nathan.
And we're here to talk about Cinderella.
Cinderella.
Which I am so glad to find out actually really holds up as a film.
It does. I mean, it may just be because we've spent the last few weeks watching 5 less than stellar entries from the Disney canon, but oh god, it's nice to be watching real movies again with minimal narration.
The narration on this is actually quite nice.
It's quite lovely, but it's not the entire movie. There's dialogue.
Also helpful. Other characters speak and sing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Lots of speaking, lots of singing, lots of characters.
But yeah, I mean, I was floored by, like, this goes from 0 to 60 of just arresting my heart. She's still sitting in bed, and I'm already in love with her again.
You know, it's funny to think that this is only Disney's second princess. So we haven't really seen a proper princess since Snow White. And I feel like coming back out of the war era, really gearing up to be the Disney studios everyone remembers, making a statement piece to be like, we're back, this is what we do. This film feels like it's taken a quantum leap, huge steps forward to becoming the Disney we are now familiar with. If you look at just the first moments that Cinderella wakes up, her design feels like a Disney design in a way that, as much as like Snow White is an incredibly impressive achievement, but they're still trying to figure out how to balance that realistic human figure they're doing a little, retroscoping and referencing off of with the elasticity and stylization of
Rotoscoping?
Rotoscoping, yeah.
We're retroscoping.
They're rotoscoping. They're trying to balance that realistic human figure and the stylization of animation. And I don't feel like they nailed it in Snow White, but they've nailed it here. Cinderella is so elegant and so beautifully designed and so expressive, feeling perfectly human without feeling too human, if that makes sense.
That's true. One of the people you can actually thank for that is a woman named Helene Stanley. She is the live-action model for Cinderella and actually the stepsister Anastasia in this movie. She's also Princess Aurora and used for Anita in 101 Dalmatians. That live-action reference that they were watching and filming is all really based on this woman's movements. So I think if you sat down and watched all these movies back-to-back, you would very much notice that these female characters are moving in a very similar fashion. They have that grace. They have that same, very slender build. Huge accolades to the incredible animators who are putting this film together, but a little bit of credit does need to go to Helene.
Absolutely. Based on those characters that she's been a model for, I expect she was a vision of grace.
A vision of grace.
A vision of grace. But yeah, I mean, from its opening moments, this film feels like a statement piece. We're back at the elaborate Disney storybook, and not only does the book open, but the light from the windows, the shades part open upon the book, as if to say, here we are, we're back. Let's throw open the windows, let's let the light in, let's start a new day. Unfortunately, the book itself, the exterior is kind of ugly.
I mean, I would prefer Snow White's book, I think, to this one, or Sleeping Beauty's.
But the art inside is lovely.
Oh, it's gorgeous. I would happily live in that kingdom.
Yeah. honestly, it might have been nice for the film to capture just a little bit more of that elegant French aesthetic of the storybook. You get it in the outdoor architecture of their little chateau, but I don't know that it is present very strongly throughout the rest of the film.
You know what's funny is I don't think of Cinderella as French, even though, yes, they are using words like chateau.
I believe the original is Charles Perrault.
Yeah,
story?
This is very specifically modeled after his fairy tale published in 1697, not after the Grimm's Brothers version, which was published in 1812, which is a much grittier version with people chopping off certain body parts to fit their feet in shoes. Not great. This one is better.
The French.
Yeah. But actually, you know, there are hundreds of stories of Cinderella across cultures and time. And one of the earliest versions that we know about is the story of Rhodopus, a Greek slave girl who marries the king of Egypt. And it was written down by the Greek geographer Strabo from somewhere around like 7 BC to AD 23. And to give a little background on the film, this film's budget was $2.9 million. It was released on March 4th, 1950. And at this point in time, now today, the all-time worldwide box office has brought in $263,591,415, according to the internet. It's also been nominated for 3 Academy Awards: Best Sound, Best Original Score, and Best Original Song, Bibbidi-bobbidi-be. Again, none of them won.
Aww.
But it's nice to be nominated.
That is a refrain that Disney will have to say a lot.
I know. But the castle used in this film is actually the one that they use as a landmark at Magic Kingdom in Walt Disney World, Florida. So, just so you know, the castle that we have here at Disneyland in California is Sleeping Beauty's castle.
The better castle.
We can fight about which one is better later. And for some...
it's fine. You know, I would buy either. Be happy to live in either. I'm not that picky about my castles.
You don't care about the previous owner too much. And for some historical context, we are in 1950 when this movie comes out. World War II ended in 1945, and NATO is formed a year earlier than this movie in 1949. And currently the U.S. is working on its first hydrogen bomb. So, put that in perspective.
The rest of this podcast will be an extended and critical analysis on how Cinderella is actually metaphorically a story about the unlimited and dangerous power of the hydrogen bomb.
Let's not do that. Let's instead talk about how Disneyland will open in 5 years after this movie in 1955. And I just liked, for my own personal reference, that my parents still aren't born.
Yeah. That means it must be old news.
Well, I think what is interesting for me personally to put things into context is to realize my grandmother was alive. I think for all of them, she was too young to see Snow White. Like, way too young to see Snow White. She was like a baby. But it's kind of crazy to realize that, like, my grandmother would have grown up with these films coming out. And, like, you know, at this point, my mom doesn't even exist yet. And these things are, like, it helps with my own personal historical timeline. Yeah.
And it's interesting. It is interesting to me. My grandmother was actually born early enough to have caught the very earliest Disney shorts, but alas, she was only like 2 or 3 when they came out, so she doesn't have any recollection of them. I'm talking like the Alice shorts.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow. Those are old. But lots of fun. I wish we did more things like that today, actually. That should make more of a resurgence on YouTube.
Well, quarantine's the time to do it.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
All right, here's a challenge, listeners. Build a green screen in your quarantine home and, animate yourself into zany little shorts.
I mean, they basically have all of that technology on Zoom now, so why not? All you need is a white wall.
Super easy.
Yeah. This film actually marks the first time that Disney is hiring songwriters from outside his studio. Think of it as kind of like hiring Elton John or Phil Collins to come in and write the music for your movie. Only this time it is guys who are named Mack David, Jerry Livingston, and Al Hoffman. They will go on to write the music for Alice in Wonderland. So I like them.
What have they done outside of Disney?
I don't know, man. Let's just, like, keep in mind the opening song in Cinderella, which is, like, very choral and not something we would ever listen to today. Like, they definitely wrote that stuff, and, like, no one wants to sing the songs from Alice in Wonderland, except me, because I love Alice in Wonderland.
There are songs in Alice in Wonderland.
Exactly. So I don't think that their style is going to be anything that we would recognize today. So I did not write that down. However, Disney, being a very smart man, he kept the publishing rights on their compositions and then started the Walt Disney Music Company. And so at this point, the studio starts to create revenue from selling the sheet music to their songs. Yeah, isn't that cool?
That's the 50s equivalent of putting out your album with pop stars singing your music.
Basically, yeah. Actually, one interesting tidbit. One of the things that they do during that Sing Sweet Nightingale song, where all the bubbles are floating up and Cinderella's in each of them and she actually harmonizes with herself. That's a technique called using double track vocals, which now we see on YouTube all the time of, singers recording themselves multiple times, layering it all together. But this is one of the first instances of that. And it creates this really cool effect.
It is a cool effect. Yeah. And now I'm sure it's all over TikTok.
I think it's more on YouTube. I don't really go to the TikToks, so I don't really know what they're... We're old. So
you said you're really pleased how well this holds up. When was the last time you watched it?
Oh, gosh. I think I watched it a lot as a kid, as a very young girl. I might have watched it maybe 2 or 3 times between high school and into college, but I just don't think I really watched it after that. So, solid decade since college.
Yeah, I actually feel like this is one of the films that I didn't revisit in college and as an adult, so my memories of it were very faint from childhood. And yeah, I very much enjoyed it. I thought it was a elegantly made film. I will say, I was surprised how much of it is actually just animal antics. Like, as a proportion of the film, I'm pretty sure this movie is like 60% animal antics, 40% actual fairy tale plot.
Yes, but see, Cinderella can't be funny because Cinderella is beautiful. So in order to entertain the audience...
people are never funny.
I know, it drives me nuts. This would have been a very different film if she had been played by Lucille Ball.
That would have been pretty great.
Yeah. I think also the reason I have not watched this movie a whole lot is that Cinderella wasn't my princess. I feel very strongly that most women who have grown up with Disney, they have like a patron princess who speaks to their heart. And for me, it was Belle, because Belle was a reader and she just made a lot more sense to me. Whereas Cinderella was my best friend's princess growing up. And so, like, this wasn't my movie that I connected with. I think that's why it didn't draw me in over and over again, because it was someone else's princess. Yeah. Still liked her, still wanted to be friends with her. But, if I'm going to pop on a movie, just for fun or like that comfort movie, it was going to be Beauty and the Beast.
Yeah, that makes sense. No, but I think Belle's definitely my princess.
Is Belle your patron princess?
She is.
Yay!
She's a reader.
This is why we're together.
She's smart, and she has high standards.
Go Ravenclaw. Cinderella's a Hufflepuff?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Okay. And as we know, having rewatched it recently, Snow White is a Slytherin.
Oh, yes. Definite 100% Slytherin.
Not even a question.
Anyway, back to Cinderella. So we're still in 1950.
All right, flashback music, and it's 1950. The war has ended. Our heroes are back. The economy is rolling along, and we are entering a rare period of middle-class flourishing in the United States. And Disney is back at the top of their game.
This is true, although I had read somewhere on the internet and was not able to find more evidence, but I was told by someone on the internet that Disney was actually still $4 million in debt when this movie came out. So that's possibly a thing. So they're not totally on top of their game, but they made it back. So,
did.
And it's, this movie is still going strong and making them so much money every year.
Yeah.
Because Cinderella is that perfectly classical princess that, like, it doesn't age or get old, because Disney had those really great rules that he didn't want too much pop culture of the time coming into his movies, so that it would transcend the year or the decade, and it really works. There are so many movies now that came out when we were kids that have not aged terribly well, or you go back and watch them and look at them and you're just like, yeah, no wonder kids today don't want to watch these films. not going to name them because I don't want to fight with you, but you can definitely find examples of that. And Cinderella
Historians will have no trouble dating the DreamWorks films. Even the ones I like they're very clearly enmeshed in the pop culture of their time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but Cinderella's just a wonderful, magical, fantastic film. I can't get over it. I don't know. I mean, Cinderella's thing is that she is kind. Like, that is the thing that we put her up on a pedestal and say, look, girls, someone who's kind. Don't you want to be like her? And so I was expecting a little bit from, my adult feminist perspective to come back to this movie and be like, ugh. And Cinderella won me over.
I said this when the live-action Cinderella remake came out a few years back, which is a film I actually quite like. And I think it does a good job of taking this movie, capturing some of the iconic images, and bringing a fresh spin on a lot of things. But I think we may be at a point culturally where being kind is kind of a countercultural brave thing to do. And I don't, obviously I understand that expectation is placed much more heavily on women than it ever has been on men. And that has really, I think, been a sticking point in holding back women from taking charge and taking leadership positions in a very cutthroat and competitive world. But I certainly watch Cinderella, both this film and the recent live-action remake, and I think kindness is a virtue that I certainly wish I practiced more, and that we all practiced more, men especially.
Yeah, I've said this to you before in conversation, but it has struck me that the role models that we give to girls are usually things about being kind and treating others well and helping people, and we don't give that to little boys, and that makes me sad. And so I really wish that they would make a Disney prince whose not sole purpose, but whose thing is about
kindness.
Whose thing is about kindness and modeling that to little boys so that they also want to be like him.
We just kind of went through a couple years where Mr. Rogers was, really big in pop culture, between the really successful documentary from a couple years ago and the Tom Hanks movie from this past year. And yeah, I mean, Mr. Rogers is someone that is beloved by all and imitated by so few. And yeah, part of what makes him so exceptional is that there are very few male role models that operate in that mode. And I definitely think that kindness was his guiding virtue.
That is very true. I second that emotion.
So, Cinderella, we're sorry you had to be kind through some pretty miserable circumstances, you and many women like you, but I really admire you for it.
Aww.
And the benefit of being kind is that every animal everywhere wants to help you.
It's true. And sing songs about helping you. I really enjoy the animal antics.
I think there are a bit too many of them, but actually they are quite good as far as animal antics, and they are more relevant to the film than some of the animal antics that just kill time in other movies.
Yeah, well, they're all relevant to the plot. Except maybe, I guess, getting breakfast, but I really enjoy that scene with the corn and Gus trying to carry too many corns.
That one does go on a bit.
I like it.
And the mice in this film are really vivid. They have a fairly distinctive design, even for a company that has made a lot of mice. These mice have a particular eye shape and look and way of speaking that is very distinctive and very thought through.
Yeah, they have their own particular dialect, really, if you will. Yes, the voices are sped up, but they still have like a particular like grammar dialect in which they phrase things, which is really cool. You can definitely go on YouTube and find videos that people have added technology to slow it down and try and get it back to what maybe the original registers was, and that was kind of fun to take a look at. So far, I haven't seen anything officially released by Disney, but it is really funny to watch them sing in their deeper male voices.
Also interesting that the mice are the only animals that talk.
Oh, that's true. I didn't really realize that.
The birds don't talk. The cat doesn't talk.
Bruno doesn't talk. The horse doesn't talk.
Nope.
There's a lot of animals who do not talk in this film.
It's just mice. They are actually the mice from Nim.
just, many years earlier.
Yeah, that's why they haven't got full control of their verbal faculties yet.
Ah, I see. Maybe Cinderella is secretly a scientist?
Oh, let's make that movie. We think that, she's earned their trust by giving them clothes, but actually she's earned their trust by giving them brain augmentation.
Precisely. Yeah, I guess I never put together that the mice talk and Lucifer doesn't, who is like a very smart cat.
Mm-hmm, that's true.
Lucifer actually does have a voice actress, by the way.
Really? There's all the purring and meowing?
A lot of hissing, probably, also, too.
Mostly hissing.
Lucifer is actually played by none other than the legend, June Foray, who is best known for playing the role of Granny in those Tweety and Sylvester shorts, and Rocky the Squirrel in Rocky and Bullwinkle, as well as Natasha Fatale in those Bullwinkle cartoons.
Mm.
Yeah.
I suppose Lucifer does have a certain Tom and Jerry quality, doesn't he?
Yeah. And obviously, you're not meant to like Lucifer, but he's really entertaining, and he moves really great, and I love how pudgy he is. And that moment where he's trying to figure out what cup Gus is under on the tea trays in between Cinderella going back and forth is just incredibly delightful. Just
very expressive.
So emotional. He's great.
I found myself just waiting for him to have one moment of repentance or turnaround, but no, he's just vain and evil through and through, like his masters.
Yeah, there is no empathy for our villains in this particular film. What is interesting, though, is that in one of the later Disney sequels that I have not made you watch, they do redeem Anastasia.
All right, 1 out of 3. That seems about right.
I mean, as a dude, did you enjoy the dressmaking sequence? Because I love it.
Yeah, I can't say that left a huge impression on me. I mostly spent it thinking, I appreciate the effort, animals, but, the godmother's dress is going to be a lot better. This one leaves a lot to be desired.
But they don't know that the godmother is coming, so it is the sweetest, most magical gesture ever. And it looks just like the picture. They did everything right. And they made sewing look like a lot of fun. I think that's why I took up sewing.
Because it looks cool when bluebirds do it?
Yes. I think sewing would be better if I was a tiny mouse and had to use pulleys and conveyor belts and whatnot, and had other mouse friends help me.
Well, we could make a giant mannequin that you have to make a giant dress for.
It now occurs to me, why don't we do that with statues? That would be cool if you had, a giant statue of a hero and then someone made it, a new dress every couple of years or something.
Fun fact, we of course think of many Greco-Roman statues as being, white and unadorned. But not only did they used to be painted, many of them used to have jewelry on them.
That just seems like a bad plan for getting jewelry stolen constantly.
Yes, that's why none of them have jewelry anymore.
Ah, I see. But do they have, ear holes, or... Really?
Yeah, that was what the internet reminded me in a headline that I saw and did not further investigate, so I am an expert.
Don't click!
Never click.
We're a non-clicking household. I love their dress. I think it's pretty great and pretty awesome. And I'm still disappointed that bluebirds do not want to help me with my chores.
Well, you're just not kind enough, dear.
I'll work on that. Thanks.
You gotta go make some clothes for a pigeon first.
We got a lot of those here in Los Angeles.
And they are all naked.
They are all naked. They just need hats. There is someone who's putting hats on pigeons. That is also on the internet somewhere. Oh, man. Oh, poor Cinderella.
Mm-hmm. You do feel for her. So put upon. Really, this is the perfect movie for our time in this world of increasing income inequality. And isn't really our role in society, those of us that are not stuck scrubbing things, to be fairy godmothers.
We should all be fairy godmothers. I love the fairy godmother. She's so delightful.
It is a really great character, great design, very expressive, very funny.
Oh my gosh. I forgot that she misplaced her wand. It is the most adorable grandma thing. Oh.
In most respects, as I'm sure we will argue about in great length later, I prefer Sleeping Beauty. But the fairy godmother is better than the three fairies in Sleeping Beauty.
Fact. Also, her ensemble with the hood and the cloak just looks really comfy. It looks like pajamas to me. Which is probably not true or what it was intended to be, but it just looks so comfy. The fairy godmother's actually, you might remember, played by Verna Felton, who was that elephant matriarch in Dumbo, and she will be the Queen of Hearts in Alice in Wonderland. And it, you just realize what range her voice has, that she does not have to be a villain. Mm-hmm. She can actually be quite sweet.
Mm-hmm. But always round.
Usually round, yes. I am glad Cinderella did not go to the ball in her pink dress, actually. I just don't think things would have worked out for her that way.
Yeah, no, it's a very kind gesture from the animals, but it's not ball ready.
Well, she picked it out. It's not their fault. She pointed to a picture, and they executed it.
And that's why you need a personal stylist. Someone who understands your style better than you do. Because the fairy godmother's dress is pretty choice.
What's interesting to me is that, in merchandising and in the many years after Cinderella came out, we always say the dress is blue, but it's not. It's white. You watch the movie.
Silver.
It's white. Okay, sure. It's silver. It's beautiful and gorgeous, but it is not blue. Whoever told you Cinderella wears blue has been lying to you and me. It is not her color. But I think it especially looks magical when you get to the scenes of them dancing, around the palace and the gardens and whatnot. But part of that, I think, is that it looks like a wedding dress already. So when she comes out at the end in her new wedding dress, you're just like, same thing. Mm-hmm. It just doesn't sparkle because it's not magic. It is also said that the scene where her dress transforms from the rags to the new beautiful silver dress is one of Walt Disney's favorite moments of animation. I would believe it.
Yeah, no, it's a good choice. It's very magical.
I think perhaps it is all of our favorites in our hearts.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
There's also that moment where the fairy godmother appears on the bench under her, and that's just a really great trick of perspective, because there's absolutely nothing wonky about Cinderella, having thrown herself on the bench in such a way and then have the godmother show up under her, and it's this cool optical illusion that my brain can't rectify and is mystified by, and I love it.
Yeah. I'm glad she didn't materialize through Cinderella's arms. That would be unpleasant.
We're all two-dimensional here. It does seem a little backwards thinking, though, to spend a lot of time turning mice into horses and then turn a horse into a person. There's clearly a hierarchy here.
Well, also, there's only one horse, but there are many mice.
Yes, but the horse...
You don't want to show up at the party with just one horse drawing your carriage. I mean, that is so upper middle class.
Needs more horsepower. Oh, but yeah, and when she is transforming the pumpkin, it reminded me a whole lot of the animation that we had just seen in Fun and Fancy Free with the beanstalk growing. Like, oh yeah, they know how to do that now.
Yeah, they're absolutely gifted at that. I'm sure there's one guy at Disney who's like, vines, that's me.
I'm the vine guy.
Mm-hmm.
I was actually surprised. I did not remember how violent the king is in this movie.
He's a fireball, ain't he?
Oh, yes. And is constantly trying to kill his poor, clerk person?
Mm-hmm.
What do we even call that person? Assistant?
Yeah.
I'm sure he has a name.
He has a name. I think he has a title. I've forgotten.
Hang on. I'm gonna find out. His name is the Grand Duke, in case you were wondering.
Ah, yes. The king is incredibly violent towards the Grand Duke. That is not a job I would like to have under such poor leadership.
If he's the Grand Duke, does that mean that he's like the king's brother? Isn't he then also a prince? Isn't that what we call princes? Dukes?
Oh, I'm not one of those royal family experts.
But that's
Maybe it's different in France.
A Grand Duke, according to the internet, is a prince or nobleman ruling over a territory in certain European countries. So I was correct! Yes. So he is also a prince, probably then.
Or a nobleman.
Well,
but probably not just a glorified assistant.
Well, he certainly is being treated like a glorified assistant. He needs to get new employment. It's a very abusive relationship.
Yeah, I don't think this king properly understands the role of his nobility.
No. But, like, this just gives him a whole new light where I'm like, oh, you're probably family. Like, you're probably the prince's uncle.
Probably.
Or something.
Yeah. Just sitting around, realizing he's never, ever, ever going to have any power. He should be off ruling a fiefdom. But no, his brother the king just wants to keep him around and heap abuse on him. And what are you going to do? Say no to the king?
Have you plan a party in one day?
This king does not seem like the kind of king you say no to.
Oh, you definitely
You wind up beheaded.
Yes, which he will personally do. There was, like, a lot of throwing very sharp objects at people. Oh, you know what I really loved, though? I find in a lot of scripts and things that I've read lately that it's a lot of people just talking, you know, across a table at each other or just in a room. And when the king and the Grand Duke have to talk about the fact that, like, the girl ran away, the prince did not get to propose, it is this fantastic scene of literally just the two of them talking, but they are bouncing on the bed up in the chandelier, like the king's trying to kill him, and it's just all of this great bit of business while they have a, like, really truly just a dialogue conversation. So hats off to the animators and the story people came up with that.
Good job, storyboard team.
Fantastic. I was so amused. Oh, it was delightful.
Yes.
I realize now the prince barely speaks at all.
Yeah, he's really not much of a character.
And yet little girls everywhere, you know, that is the thing they are pining for in their lives. It's not a whole lot to go on.
I suppose this is probably the movie that Frozen is most an extended commentary on. Princess and prince who meet at a party, go wander around, you know, falling in love in a montage, and then immediately are supposed to get married.
I mean, I still think that's extremely true of Snow White and Sleeping Beauty, so...
Snow White meets that prince at least, like, twice.
Nuh-uh, she has one song with him before she goes away to the dwarves and then dies. And then he shows up at the end.
Right.
One interaction over a song. That's it. I don't see it being any different, is all I'm saying. We're not singling Cinderella out.
All right, fair. But it is the one where they meet at a party.
Yes, but so do lots of people.
Yeah, that is a pretty common way to meet people. I think that's why people throw them.
Yes, I don't think you can, you know, forecast your marriage based on whether or not you met at a party.
That sequence of the two of them is quite romantic. Dancing elegantly through beautiful locations, lovely music.
You're like, yes, this is what I want.
Mm-hmm.
This is beautiful and gorgeous. I want to wear that dress. I have yet to actually wear a Cinderella dress. It is one of my lifelong dreams, to wear a big poofy Cinderella ball dress.
No, you don't get to do that in, like, cotillion or something?
No, you wear not so poofy things because cotillions are really more focused on, like, the cha-cha-cha and the salsa, which comes far after ball gowns. No one is teaching you Civil War era, you know, cage skirt dresses. They should be.
All right, we'll try and find an occasion for you.
We're going to need a second closet for it, though. It will not fit in the closet we currently have. But it just moves so beautifully. Like, can we just shout out to the people who animate cloth moving?
And the Sparkle team.
Ooh, the Sparkle team.
Sparkle team does excellent work.
Applause.
They get so close and intimate, and the camera work during the scene. They're so perfectly lit in these idyllic nighttime locations.
Yeah, they cover quite a lot of ground.
Yeah, you can absolutely imagine that underneath this song, they're having really warm and moving conversations.
And yet...
really bearing one another's soul. And yet he never learns her name.
And yeah, exactly. That is what I was going to say.
Or maybe he did when they first met and he's like me, and when the first thing that someone does is introduce themselves, you immediately forget their name and then feel too awkward to ask.
And hope that someone else met them so you can ask your friend.
Who's that girl with the shoes? Anyone know?
Along the lines of Titanic, though, where we're all like, dude, they both could have fit on that door. I still feel like, dude, you could have reached down and got your shoe. As she's running up the staircase and realizes the Grand Duke is coming down the staircase, and she just kind of like flails and turns around instead of swiping the shoe. She's clearly not an athlete.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously it all worked out for the best.
I regret to inform you, however, that Cinderella is actually a terrible film because it has a huge gaping plot hole. Why doesn't the shoe change back?
Well, the shoe wasn't anything before?
I presume it was her shoes she was wearing with the other dress.
I'd have to verify that. I don't know, man. 'Cause it's special.
Because that is the providence of magic.
It is that really wonderful magical moment, though, when you know she's had to make her getaway and she's being chased like a criminal. No wonder she runs.
Stop! Heartbreaker!
But you know they dive into the bushes essentially, and you know she's back in her rags, and everyone is back into their normal form, and there's just the one glass slipper, and it is this beautiful, wonderful, sparkly miracle. Made me very happy. But that one line that she has about, you know, oh, thank you, you know, thank you. It's just, it's so heartfelt.
No.
It pulls all my heartstrings. She's so grateful. It's a really, really sweet line reading. She's just so genuine. Darn it.
Yeah.
You don't get any more genuine than that. Let's take a moment and talk about Ilene Woods, who is the voice of Cinderella, giving her that absolutely wonderful and magical and incredibly kind voice.
Yeah. Tell me about Ilene Woods.
Yeah. Well, she landed the role of Cinderella without even auditioning for it.
Oh, all right. Maybe just at a party and Disney heard her talk and was like, you! That's the voice!
No. I will tell you the story if you just wait.
Okay.
So she was friends with the songwriters Mack and Jerry Livingston, and they asked her for a favor to go ahead and sing the demos of the songs that they were writing for the film. So she did Bibbidi-bobbidi-boo, and So This Is Love, A Dream Is a Wish Your Heart Makes, and they sent those demos to Walt Disney to, you know, get his feedback on the songs and how they were doing. He loved her voice so much that he cast Woods as Cinderella. And he'd already auditioned somewhat like 300 women.
Wow.
And just fell in love with her voice. So she never had a formal audition. Which is nuts. That's a Cinderella story.
Yeah, all you have to do is be friends with successful songwriters.
It does help. I mean, also, I feel like it just means never turn down a favor for a friend.
Yeah, that's probably good advice.
Because that good karma really came back for her.
Yeah, never turn down a favor for your especially talented friends.
Especially talented ones. Yes. I mean, I think we are proponents of be kind and do what you can for other people. It is a good way to live. It is a better way to live. But I have a guess who for you. So, Lady Tremaine is voiced by Eleanor Audley, who will go on to be another prominent female villain. Can you tell me who she plays?
Is it Maleficent?
It is!
Oh, good.
Good job! You did it!
The best villain.
She has a great hat.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's called something else. It's not really a hat, but I don't know what else to call it. It's like a mask for your head?
Yeah, see, you know, there's that famous line from Roger Rabbit where Jessica Rabbit claims she's not bad, she's just drawn that way. Maleficent could probably do the same thing, but for a different value of bad. I'm not evil, I'm just drawn that way.
Isn't that what the newer Maleficent movies are getting at? Anyway, the Disney animators actually designed both Maleficent and Lady Tremaine, kind of based on Audley and how she looked in real life. She's
Makes
also
sense.
the voice of Madame Leota in the Haunted Mansions at Disney World and Disneyland.
Oh, that's cool.
Any other impressions of the film or moments that you really enjoyed?
It's a film that I think makes excellent use of light and shadow. You don't think of this movie as being a dark film. You think of it as being a very bright and cheery film. But there's actually a lot of really lovely dark nighttime scenes and shadows falling through the chateau and stark window light illuminating bare patches, and it creates a really dramatic effect that I think really works in this film's favor. That moment where Cinderella runs away, having her dress torn into the outer darkness of the garden. Really, you feel her agony and her pain just through the color and the light and the design. It feels very lonely and forgotten out there in the garden until the fairy godmother shows up.
Mm-hmm. I mean, they have some really beautiful and exceptional color work and layout design and that attention to, shapes and composition. And, Mary Blair is obviously doing a lot of the concept art on this and Alice in Wonderland and Peter Pan coming up. Beautiful art books if you ever have a chance to flip through them. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's just a beautiful world. Mm-hmm. So many swirls in every bite.
Swirls everywhere. Yeah. As much as it can get a little exhausting the way Disney constantly re-releases its material so you can buy it again and again and again, I am really glad that, Disney values these classics so highly that they put such incredible restoration work into them. The color and the clarity of this film, for being a film from, 70 years ago now, is incredible. It just pops off the screen. There's no denying that the run of Cinderella and Peter Pan and Alice in Wonderland, Sleeping Beauty, some really iconic work. And I think more so than the films that we've seen so far and the run of original films, the original Disney classics, this is, I think, when Disney defines what we now think of as the Disney brand.
Oh, yeah.
The Disney voice, the Disney style.
It all comes together.
Yeah. Snow White, Pinocchio, Fantasia, Bambi, Dumbo. All classics, all incredibly ambitious, but all very different in a lot of ways. All very kind of bold and experimental. And this feels much more like a company with a clear vision of who they are and what they do.
Yeah, I feel like this is a moment of maturation where, the earlier films are a little bit, young adult finding their way, finding their voice. Yeah. And this is the, yes, I have graduated and truly become an adult and a contributing citizen of society. So, obviously, Cinderella, even before this film, had so many versions and iterations, and after this film there have been plenty of sequels and remakes and other people doing their take on Cinderella. There will continue to be.
It's a really riffable story.
Totally true. So Disney has its own two direct-to-video sequels, Cinderella 2, Dreams Come True, from 2002, and Cinderella 3, A Twist in Time, which was released in 2007. Fun fact, Cinderella 2...
I love fun facts.
Cinderella 2 Dreams Come True cost $5 million, which is basically twice what the original Cinderella cost. Obviously inflation. There's inflation, but I just think that's very funny and interesting. And then, of course, there's the 2015 live action remake, which is stellar and gorgeous in its own right. But I think that the best live action Cinderella movie is Ever After from 1998. That is just that is the perfect way I think I want a script to expand on the story that we already have and add in new and interesting details and really make it feel like a live action lived in world. Ever After is just so good at that.
I mostly remember the way that it looks and feels. It's got a very distinctive visual look.
Oh, and it's got some really great quotable lines. It made me really, really like Leonardo da Vinci, who is probably nothing like the man in this film, but greatly enjoyed him. Yeah. What morals do we take away from Cinderella?
Be kind and the universe will reward you.
Yeah, I suppose that is kind of the currency, isn't it? Kindness is karma currency.
Yeah.
You should be kind anyway.
Yeah. That is an important lesson and moral that stories have to really reinforce in people and really help them ground that in the core of their being. Because oftentimes, in the moment, being kind does not help you. But over the course of a lifetime, in general, being kind builds the kind of relationships and the kind of connections in the world that really will help you in difficult situations. It's hard to tell that kind of story in a nice, succinct way because it is a lifetime's work. So I think it's great to give children stories that really ground at their core this idea that, yeah, be kind and ultimately kindness will be rewarded.
Yeah, I agree with that. The one thing I'm going to disagree with the film about, though, is that at the very beginning in that opening scene, Cinderella says, I can't say what my dream is or it won't come true. And I feel like that is part of the problem with women who are told not to tell people what they want. And it all stems back to Cinderella being like, oh, if you say your wish, it won't come true. And that's just incorrect. If there's one thing that I have learned and struggled to learn in the past decade, it is that no, you have to tell people what you want and you need to be confident about it. And then people will actually, because they are wonderful humans on this planet, like people will rush in to help you. So tell people your dreams. Tell everyone your dreams. Do not keep them to yourself.
Addendum to our earlier discussion. It isn't just the fact that the fairy godmother shows up to help Cinderella as a reward, a divine reward for her kindness. The movie doesn't work without the fairy godmother helping her, but it also doesn't work without the animals helping her in the climactic moments. And that is entirely a result of the ceaseless kindness that she has shown them over the years.
I mean, that's just good storytelling. That, the thing that is uniquely Cinderella, the fact that she is the kindest person on the planet, is what allows her to actually realize her dreams. Mm-hmm. Because those mice will stop at nothing to help her.
Yeah. There's absolutely no way those mice make it up the stairs in time at the end of the film.
Magic. Magic.
And, I think with a lot of other Disney princesses, the adoration of animals just seems like their birthright, but Cinderella really earns it.
Oh, yeah, the amount of tiny shoes that she has sewn. I love that she also just had like a whole bunch ready to go. Mm-hmm. There's a new mouse in the castle today. Or not castle, in the chateau today. She had little tiny shoes in a drawer and... Oh, man. Like, when does she find the time?
And prepared.
Holy cow. The whole package, really.
Well, she doesn't have a social life, so...
This is true, but, like, she works all day during the day, so you have to imagine that, like, she's had a full work day and, like, gets back to her little room at night and then sits there sewing these tiny little shoes by candlelight. Mm-hmm. Tiny little shoes. Tiny little shirts. They're so cute. Oh.
I didn't think about it until now, but it's actually a nice sort of reverse there that she sews tiny little clothes for the animals. And then the animals sew very large clothes for her.
I never thought about that before.
Or they're working at reverse scales.
That's how you show people you love them. Oh. Yes, I guess, she's a giantess to them, I suppose.
Mm-hmm. Teeny tiny to everybody else, though.
The mice?
No, Cinderella is, very slender. You would never call her a giant.
Her feet are especially tiny.
So tiny. Those shoes are like the size of a thumb.
Which is not great for, like, our general understanding of beauty standards, because we are all trying to achieve something that is simply impossible. Mm-hmm.
To be fair, Cinderella's probably gotta have small feet, because, like, what if she just had normal size 8s, and then the plot of this movie just wouldn't work, because, like, a third of the women in the kingdom would be able to fit those shoes.
What this film needed was someone to make fun of Cinderella's tiny feet at the beginning. So we're like, oh man, everyone's looking down on you for these tiny feet that you have. But then they end up being the thing that, like, are her saving grace at the end. That's what we should have layered in there.
Well, if we remake it now, everyone can run around calling her Littlefoot.
The dinosaur. Alright, I'll go with that. Mm-hmm. Abnormally small feet.
How do you even stand up in those?
I mean, obviously it's very, very basic issues with Fairy Tales 101, but it does make me sad that ugly equals evil and beautiful equals good.
Yeah.
Like, I'm definitely down for the marginalized, kind woman at the bottom of the totem pole is the one that gets to marry the prince. Because that is about your character, and at the end of the day, it comes down to, like, actionable items that you can do things about. Like, you can change your way that you act and treat other people. You can change the way that you frame your perspective and whatnot. None of us can really do anything about the face we were born with or the size we were born as. And it makes me very sad when, we just make those stereotyped correspondence of, you have this very rounded chin with very full cheeks. You must be an evil stepsister. And, oh, you are petite and slender. You'll win in the end.
Yeah, that's fair. And I think, the exaggeration of the stepsister's ugliness is a little cheap. But, I mean, that said, I don't think it's a universal rule in this film. The stepmother is actually quite elegant, and for her age, I think is...
Yeah, but I even think if you someone should do art of, like, aging the stepmother down and trying to put her in, like, maybe her 20s, 25, around Cinderella's age, and, like, try to imagine what she looked like. I don't necessarily think you would find her especially beautiful, because she is very angular. And so, yes, like, we obviously look at Maleficent and go, wow, what a very, like, sexy presence you are. But it's very different.
Yes, I mean, yeah, I suppose she's not conventionally Disney princess winsome, but I think elegance is another type of beauty, and the movie's most delightful character is the fairy godmother, who is, not petite.
Yes, but her job is not to be beautiful. Her job is
to be an icon of goodness.
Her job is to deliver presents like grandma. That's her role,
It's true.
So it just, it will always irk me, and it's not fair because it's about to be the 1950s. It was literally 1950. Like, these are the expectations in the world that they are creating this in, and what they desire from women in this era. So obviously my expectations now are not entirely fair to put on them, but it does give me pause and make me worry a little bit as we continue to give this to generations of little girls. Just to be aware. Just to think about it. Yeah. Listen, if you go to Disneyland, you're going to have, like, way more fun if you can find Anastasia and Drizella and the Wicked Stepmother and hang out with them, because they are a delight. There have been a lot of proposals and, fighting over the men in your party, and, like, they have a grand old time. They get to have so much more fun and be extremely comedic. So whoever said women aren't funny, come talk to me. We're going to Disneyland.
Whoever said women aren't not funny, you actually might not want to talk to Alexa, because I feel like you might get beaten up.
But I highly recommend, hop over to YouTube, and there are some really great, stellar videos of the two stepsisters interacting with people at Disneyland, and they are just always a delight. So they have done really great things with these characters after this film.
Yeah. And I mean, you have to imagine, as an animator, like, I'm sure it's an honor to animate the title character of the film. But I feel like you're probably pretty constrained animating the princess. And it's a lot more fun to animate the characters that are allowed to be a little rougher.
Well, yeah, I think that's why, like, Megara is really fun compared to a lot of the princesses. And even Esmeralda. And... You get to be so much more free. Well, I think that kind of brings us to the end of today's podcast. So thank you, everyone, for listening. And if you enjoyed our podcast, you can leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or your preferred podcast player. And you can write us at retroscoping@gmail.com, or find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram as Retroscoping. And please join us next time for one of my absolute all-time favorite movies, Alice in Wonderland.
I'll try not to ruin your life.
I will have enough joy and mirth and happiness and tea for all of us. We're going to get real mad up in here. All right. Be kind.
Be kind.
Be yourself.
Be kind. For everyone you meet is fighting a great battle, especially during COVID-19.
Oh, yeah.
And be kind to yourself.
Stay home.
Especially during COVID-19.
Now go live happily ever after. Tiny little shoes. Tiny little shirts. They're so cute. Oh.